Sooner fans, Longhorn Nation, welcome to episode 130 of the Bevo Podcast, the only podcast exclusively dedicated to covering the greatest rivalry in college football, the University of Texas and the University of Oklahoma. I'm here with my man, Kevin Miller. I am John Whitson. Kevin, prepared for the show today, going through the top 25 matchups. And I get to the Missouri-Boston College matchup. First of all, I can't believe that's a top 25 game, but we'll talk about the game. We'll break down the game. But as I'm doing the research to kind of figure out a little bit about Boston College, I'm reminded of the Tom Rinaldi piece from the early 2000s about former Boston College lacrosse player Wells Crowther, who was in Tower number 2 on September 11th, 2001. This is the red bandana story. Do you remember this from ESPN? The guy with the red bandana who went up and down stairs trying to save people's lives, get them to safety. The tower ultimately collapsing on him, amongst others, obviously. I didn't even realize it was September 11th when I was getting ready. I'm just putting together the show and I'm saying, let's do this, let's do that, we'll talk about this. And I watched the whole thing. It was like 13 minutes, almost 14 minutes video. I watched the whole thing. And I was brought back to that day. And it was crazy. How old were you?
I just turned 18.
What's your memory of September 11th? Do you remember where you were? What you did?
Yeah, of course, man. Yeah, so getting ready that morning. Wasn't in school. I mean, I was in college, but I didn't have a class that day. And getting ready for work, and just my mom had it on the Today Show.
Yeah, Today Show.
She told me that a plane had hit the World Trade Center, and I just remember saying, was a pilot drunk? Like, how does that happen? And we're just in there watching it and watched the second plane hit the second tower. And, you didn't have to say anything. Everybody knew what was up at that point. We knew this was an intentional attack and everything had changed. It was the feeling I got watching that is something I've never felt since and hopefully will never feel again. It was horrifying.
I too saw it on the Today Show. I did have class. I was at the University of Oklahoma. It was my senior year, last semester. And I had class. And then I followed that. I was going to have to go to work. The weird part about it, at least the weird part for me, was I was reading Tom Clancy books at the time. By the way, rest in peace, James Earl Jones, who played the best Admiral Greer of any depiction in a Tom Clancy-based movie. And that includes Morgan Freeman. So if you can be better than Morgan Freeman at a role, means you're a pretty good actor. That's
pretty good.
Whatever. That's by the by. But I'm listening to books on CD back then. That's what was my deal was. I could go to the library and get books on CD for free. And pre-podcast. And I would listen to them as I would drive back and forth to OU. Well, I had been listening to, I think it's The Sum of All Fears, where a Japanese airliner is purposely flown into the Capitol building. And all the government dies except for Jack Ryan. He becomes the president. Whatever. It doesn't matter. The point is, it was an attack with an airliner. And I had been reading it that week. And then this happened. Dude, it freaked me out. So I'm driving down, listening to the radio, trying to figure out what's going on. The second plane hits. I actually show up and go to class, and it was an accounting professor. And this is before phones and instant communication. I don't think he had any idea what was happening because he just had class. We just had class. Like it was the most normal thing. And so many of us are sitting there going, man, this is weird. What's going on? We go down to the student union, and I was just there on Saturday. And every time I'm in that room, I think about it. I go down to the student union following class. This would have been about 10:30. and they got the big screen on, and everybody's crowded around it. And I turned to this guy, and I'm like, dude, where is the second tower? He's like, oh, man, it went down like 15 minutes ago. And I was like, what? Like, I couldn't even, just wasn't there. So I didn't even
there
see it
wasn't
come.
a possibility. It didn't seem like that was possible.
No, and surely it was just a fire. It's just like they're going to put a fire out. I mean, I'll be at a fire on the 80th floor or whatever. And then I'm sitting there and the other tower comes down. Rest is history. It was horrible. But yeah, man, doing the research and just being reminded of that day. I hope that with Missouri playing Boston College, I know Tom Rinaldi's on Fox now, but I'm hoping ESPN maybe goes back into the vault because that's a good one. Tom Rinaldi's good at those stories, dude.
He is. And they usually wear the jerseys too. Boston College, they have a red bandana type jersey.
Oh,
they usually wear this time of year, so I'm sure they'll have those
on. So there you go. Sorry to start out with kind of a bummer, but at the same time, it's an important part of guys like you and my lives. Like we were affected by it. We lived in a very much post 9/11 world that's continued to affect us. So to say that it doesn't affect us now, it's crazy. Let's talk about a little bit about these games. Week 3. Let's start with Missouri Boston College. I could not believe this was a top 25 matchup. When I saw
Bill O'Brien, he's got those guys rolling up there, right?
Well, then I looked up his quarterback. It's Thomas Castellanos is his quarterback. And the article that I read said high-flying quarterback. And then I see that last week he was 10 for 16 for 106 yards and 2 touchdowns. I'm like, well, that's not great. But he did have 14 rushes for 75 yards in their win over Florida State. I think Boston College might be kind of good. It's going to be interesting to see Missouri go up against them. Missouri has held their first 2 opponents scoreless. When you think about Missouri, I don't know that I was thinking their defense was as good as I just saw. So this is an interesting game to gauge where Missouri's at, where Boston College is at. How good was Florida State? We already saw Georgia Tech take a loss last week, which makes you think, well, maybe they weren't that good. Thoughts on this game? Number 5, Ole Miss hosting Wake Forest. The line is 23.5.
The way that Ole Miss has looked so far, that offense looks like they're in midseason form already. Despite the loss of Quinshon Judkins, they're still running the ball well.
Correction. Sorry. Line is 16.5. 16.5. Go ahead. Quinshon Judkins.
Okay.
No, this is Missouri. This is Missouri, not Ole Miss. I'm sorry. Have I messed this whole thing up?
Yeah, you said Ole Miss versus Wake Forest.
Okay. Let's reset. Everybody pretend I reset. Missouri versus Boston College. Boston College is where I got the name. Number 6 versus number 24. Bill O'Brien coaches Boston College. Thomas Castellanos is their quarterback. And Missouri has held their first 2 opponents scoreless. What do you think about that game?
Well, I mean, I like Missouri's talent, man. Right? I like the way that they've recruited.
I know you do.
I love their receiving core. Luther Burden might be the best receiver in college football. Former Oklahoma commit.
What would OU be doing with Theo Wease right now? You think we could use that guy on the sideline?
Yeah, seriously. And good for him, right? Didn't really work out. OU came as part of the 3 5-star receiver class. It's bizarre that it didn't work out for any of them at OU, right? The way that you guys have been developing receivers there under Lincoln Riley. Good for him that it's working out for him at Missouri. Luther Burden, they're running the ball well. Brady Cook, their quarterback, has a lot of experience. We'll see. It's going to be a good test for them to see if they're legit. Thankfully for them, they get the game at home. But Boston College has gotten after it defensively, right? They got after Florida State, which Florida State has shown to not be very good. But yeah, this is a really interesting matchup. I'm looking forward to watching it.
We'll come back and we'll pick that one. Georgia opens up SEC play against Kentucky. They're a 24-point favorite at Kentucky. Kentucky reeling after the blowout by South Carolina. I don't think Kentucky has any chance in this game. It is a conference game, but surely Georgia rolls, right?
I would think so. I mean, they typically play Georgia pretty tough. But, man, that game against South Carolina was very concerning for them, especially for their offense and their offensive line. So if Georgia can get, we know the talent Georgia has, especially on defense. So it doesn't fare well for that offensive line having to face Georgia after facing South Carolina last week.
Alabama takes on Wisconsin. This is probably another game we pick. Number 4, Alabama. Luke Fickell hasn't really had the same success that he had at Cincinnati at Wisconsin. Led by Miami transfer Tyler Van Dyke at quarterback. There's a reason he transferred. There's a reason why the kid at Miami's playing and he's not. Tawi Walker, the Oklahoma transfer, was hurt last week, didn't play. They're hoping they have him back. This is a big noon Fox game. So Gus and Joel get to call an Alabama game, which is pretty fun. 16 points is the spread. Alabama's the favorite. Thoughts on Alabama, Wisconsin?
Well, Alabama did not look great last week against South Florida at home. It took until the fourth quarter. I mean, it was a 2-point game into the fourth quarter. They exploded and scored 28. And that's because South Florida was really trying to win the football game, meaning they would go for it on fourth down deep in their own territory when they were down to score, which gave Alabama, I think, 3 times. They had really short fields. They were able to get touchdowns to put that game away. So Alabama is still a work in progress.
Are you saying that this is maybe an upset special for Wisconsin?
It's an upset special. I just don't think they have the talent from top to bottom to hang with them. But I think it could be interesting for a while.
It's at home. I mean, it's at Wisconsin.
Right.
That could figure in.
Yeah.
Jalen Milroe, though, 21 unanswered points in the fourth quarter. He looked pretty good in that fourth quarter. He might not have looked good in the whole game. We talked about this with Oklahoma just as a comparison. Oklahoma struggled, and you just always thought, well, man, they're going to come out of it. They're going to come out. And then, of course, they never did. They never came out of it. Alabama came out of it. Fourth quarter, whether it was the short fields or whatever, you at least leave feeling a little bit better about what Jalen Milroe is likely to do against Wisconsin.
Agreed.
The game I messed up earlier, Ole Miss is playing at Wake Forest. Wake Forest is a 23.5-point favorite. I kind of feel like Ole Miss is going to roll. Tennessee at Kent State. Tennessee's versus Kent State, 49-point favorite. Here's one to keep an eye on, and I thought we might almost pick this one. Oregon, number 9 Oregon, having started at number 3 without losing, has fallen all the way to number 9, goes to Oregon State. I'm glad to see that this game stayed on the schedule. I think it's important. Oregon State is 2-0, coming off of a shutout, San Diego State. Oregon State is a 16.5-point dog. This is one I'm keeping an eye on as an upset special because Oregon has not looked good in its first 2 weeks.
Yeah, and it's been their offense, right? I mean, Dylan Gabriel's put up great numbers, but the rhythm doesn't look – it looks a little bit off, and the offensive line hasn't been great for them either. And when you look at the fact that Oregon State shut out their opponent the other day, it looks like this could be an interesting matchup. Oregon is a great test for them. Are you guys really a serious football team? We're picking you before the season as a national championship contender. How serious are you, right? Look horrible against Idaho. Struggled against Boise State. I don't know, Boise State's a good football team. But how serious are you? They need to handle their business this weekend.
Now, Oregon State, they didn't have DJ Ugalea last year, right?
They did.
Okay, so they have a new quarterback.
Yes.
Okay, I don't know.
Well, I don't know anything about. Yeah.
But defense. Listen, dude, you shut anybody out. You're a pretty good football team defensively. And with Oregon struggles, I'm keeping an eye on it. I don't think we're picking that game. We might come back to it. Miami versus Ball State, 36.5-point favorite for Miami. Utah State minus Cam Rising is still a 20-point favorite. Oklahoma State at Tulsa, 20.5-point favorite. Although Tulsa's not a bad football team, just keep an eye on it. OSU clearly struggled against Arkansas. This is like what Oklahoma State does in the non-conference, though. So we'll just continue to watch that one.
They got to get their running game going because Ollie Gordon so far this season, they have not gotten, even with their experienced offensive line and who I feel is the best running back in the country, they haven't gotten a running game going at all.
I don't know if he was a Heisman favorite, but he was definitely a Heisman contender. And as of right now, nobody's talking about him.
No, not at all, and they shouldn't be. He's giving us no reason.
Is Ollie Gordon kind of a turd? Like it's a human?
At least on the field, he comes off that way. I don't know how he is off the field, but on the field, he kind of comes across that way.
He's not likable, I guess. At a minimum, he's not likable. I think that's fair to say.
Yes. For opposing fan base, it's definitely not likable.
A game we will definitely pick, staying in the Big 12. Okay, listen to this. All right, I mentioned this last week, and it turned out that it was a conference game. I think it was Baylor, Utah. But this is K-State, 7.5-point favorite, hosting Arizona. This is not a conference game. Okay? K-State playing Arizona, top 25 matchup, not a conference game.
Do you have an explanation for that? I'm not saying you should, but
because it was a home and home where they played back in 2021, and this is the home and home. I guess doesn't necessarily have to count as a game. I don't know why you wouldn't have to go ahead and do it. Maybe because K-State didn't have any other non-conference opponents. I don't know. It seems very odd.
Really interesting. Very odd.
And it seems really odd these are both contenders for the Big 12. So if one of them had a win and a loss, but the other one gets in to like the Big 12 championship game.
That's so odd.
That has playoff implications.
Nothing about that makes sense at all.
Well, think about it, right? K-State, who struggled against Tulane, partly because I think Tulane's pretty good. They gave up 346 passing yards. And now you're going up against Noah Fafita and Tutoria McMillan at wide receiver. I mean, Arizona could have some passing yards against these guys, right? That's number one. Number two, what happens if Arizona beats K-State, but K-State makes it to the Big 12 championship and wins it?
Yeah, you're looking at a big-time controversy. People start looking at the standings and saying, wait. How did this happen? Yeah, it's very odd.
We are going to pick this game, and I don't know, based on what I just said, what my pick is, whether it will be a surprise or not. Another SEC matchup, number 16 LSU at South Carolina. South Carolina is a 7-point dog coming off a huge road win against Kentucky. LSU beat McNeese State last week, but I think it's say they're limping into the game following the loss at USC a couple weeks ago. I'm not sold that LSU is the favorite in this game. Thoughts?
Neither am I. Now, I don't love South Carolina's offense, but let me tell you, their defensive line looks incredible. I know you guys have to play them later. Look out for them. Again, offense, but they've got a freshman, Dylan Stewart. Yeah,
but you could say this. You could say the same thing about. Well, I guess LSU's offense is okay, but their defense isn't great.
LSU's offense hasn't looked great either. I mean, they look okay, but they haven't ran the ball well. And then John Emery's out for the season with an injury. So, yeah, I'm not sold on LSU yet. And this defensive line is incredible. And watch for Dylan Stewart. He's a freshman, 5-star out of DC. And this kid looks unbelievable.
I'll send you some highlights. Are you thinking we might pick this game? Is this crossing your mind as a pickable game?
You know, it is. It is. Like I said, I have major concerns about South Carolina's offense. But what they did to Kentucky, they weren't even throwing the football. They couldn't protect Brock Vandagriff at all. He was running for his life.
Yeah, he had a terrible game.
I don't think he's a bad player. I think he's actually pretty good. We all know he's talented. They weren't even throwing the ball because they couldn't protect him at all. He was literally running for his life out there. It was insane.
Michigan taking on Arkansas State, 23.5 point. Let's see if the Michigan Wolverines bounce back. Notre Dame, speaking of bounce back, this will be a bounce back if they can beat Purdue. They are a 10-point favorite. Listen, dude, I almost said Morgan Freeman. Not Morgan Freeman. Marcus Freeman. Although I'm not sure who's better looking. Morgan Freeman has an air of dignity about him. Marcus Freeman has an air of youthful exuberance. So, I don't know. It's whatever you're into. Right now, I think I'm into Marcus Freeman, even though he lost last week. This is going to be interesting, dude, because Purdue is not very good, but who thought Northern Illinois was?
Yeah. And, again, their offense, man. New coordinator, new quarterback, and Riley Leonard really struggled against Northern Illinois.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's going to,
their passing game. I'm not seeing any dynamic receivers for Notre Dame either. No real difference makers or big time playmakers out there. So this could be a game.
It could be a game. Nebraska, welcome to the top 25. You are going up against Northern Iowa, where you are a 30.5-point favorite. Don't blow it. Don't get invited to the party and blow it. And then the aforementioned Northern Illinois. Are they the Salukis or is that Southern Illinois?
That's Southern Illinois. They're the Huskies, I believe.
They're the Huskies. All right. Well, they're both dogs. Let that sink in. Come on, Illinois. Get better. They're off this week after breaking into the top 25. So you would think they could keep it. Staying in the SEC, Texas A&M at Florida. I mean, it's going to be a good game. I don't know that these teams are any good, but it's going to be a good game. Florida is a 4.5-point dog at home, and they probably lose this game because I think Florida sucks. So we'll see if they suck as much as
they started the freshman though.
Because I think Texas A&M sucks too, right? So I guess I'm saying Florida sucks more in my mind.
Okay, well, Florida put their 5-star freshman. He started last week and looked pretty good. I mean, they're playing against Samford, so. But it gives Florida fans some hope. And we'll see how Texas A&M defends this ultra-talented quarterback. DJ Lagway is his name.
These are typical SEC teams. What I would say in the middle of the road of the SEC, maybe lower tier, okay? And it's striking to me that Oklahoma might be right there with them. And what's even more striking about it, they will look very similar in terms of pretty good defense and just mediocre as you know what offense. Isn't that interesting how quickly Oklahoma has become mired into what is now a typical SEC team? We're going to talk a lot about it, but I don't know. It's like this is A&M and Florida could very well, you could just switch jerseys and OU could be there. UAB at Arkansas is 24.5, then you bounce back. Vandy at Georgia State. Vandy's only a 10.5-point favorite. Your boy Shadur taking on Colorado State at Colorado State. They are a 7-point favorite. I don't love them as this. I don't love them as. I mean, Colorado made it a ball game last year, and yeah, it's going to be interesting. New Mexico at Auburn. Auburn looking to bounce back after their loss to Cal is a 28-point favorite at home. Toledo at Mississippi State. Mississippi State's only an 11.5-point favorite. Okay. On the year, you are 6-5. I am 7-4. We will pick the OU Tulane game after that preview. We will pick the Texas UTSA game after that preview. OU 13.5 points. Texas 35 points. We have to pick 3 games. I think our choices, I'm going to give you the choices. As always, I will let you pick them. Missouri, Boston College, Kansas State, Arizona, Bama, Wisconsin, and LSU, South Carolina. What 3 do you want to pick?
All right, we'll do Arizona, K-State.
Okay.
We'll do Boston College, Missouri.
Okay.
And we'll do LSU, South Carolina.
Wow. Okay. Okay. I like it. Let's start with Missouri, Boston College. I just think it's too many points. I think it's I don't think it's enough points. I think Missouri's really good. I think they're going to hold this team down. I don't think Thomas Castellano, if he can only go 10 for 16 for 106, is going to go up against Missouri's defense. I don't think he has it. I take Mizzou to cover.
Okay, what's the spread again?
16.5.
Yeah, I like Missouri as well.
You go first on this one. K-State, Arizona.
Okay, what's the line on this one?
What do I have? This is a top 25 matchup. Number 14, K-State, hosting number 20, Arizona. 7.5-point favorite for K-State.
I like Arizona in this one just because of their explosive offense. I think there are some holes in the secondary that were shown by Tulane for K-State, and I think they're better at everything offensively when it comes to throwing the football. Teteroa McMillan, I think he's the best receiver in the country. Him and Luther Burden. And, yeah, I like Arizona there.
I do, too. I think Arizona's – well, I guess what Oklahoma's about to find out. But I think Arizona's better than Tulane. They do have a new coach, but you got a returning quarterback. Like you said, a great receiver. They're going up against what was an exposed Kansas State secondary. Not only do I like Arizona in the win, not just the cover.
It should be a fun game, a Friday night game too.
LSU, South Carolina. Based on what I've seen, I think South Carolina wins this game. I'm not sure they cover the 7. I'm going to take LSU to cover, South Carolina to win.
Now, who's the favorite here?
I've got LSU. Do you need me to double check it?
LSU's the favorite, right?
LSU's the favorite. So South Carolina.
Like South Carolina.
South Carolina to win.
Well, if they win, then they cover. Right?
Oh, I see it. Never mind. You're right.
Yeah.
Let me take that back. I guess I'm saying South Carolina in the upset.
Yeah. And I've got the same. I don't know if they'll win the game, but I think they'll cover.
Yeah.
The defensive line is too good. And
I'm sorry.
LSU, I like LSU, but they're again, their running back being out for the season.
I don't like LSU. Their quarterback is not as good as last year. Understatement. Clearly, he won the Heisman.
Sure.
Their defense hasn't improved that much. And Brian Kelly is not coaching very well right now. With what occurred at the USC game, I don't feel comfortable with Brian Kelly at the helm. Do you?
No, I've got some concerns if I'm an LSU fan.
Yeah, major concerns. And I think they're going to be exposed again this week. Okay. Well, we're right down the line. So in terms of head-to-head, we'll say the same. Let's see if we come out winners at the end. I guess we have OU and Texas still to pick. Kevin, Oklahoma hosts Tulane. They're in the American Conference. They're coached by John Sumrall, who was previously at Troy with a 23-4 record. Before that, he was the defensive coordinator at Kentucky. Quarterback Darian Mensah is, I don't know if lighted up is the right word, but on the year, he's 29 of 41 for 547 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. I can tell you I would take those numbers at our quarterback right now. They've got 2 pretty good running backs. Mekhi Hughes, 35 for 187 and 2 touchdowns. And Shady Clayton Johnson. Is it Shady or Shady? Do you know?
Not sure how it's pronounced.
It's got 2 A's. So when I see 2 A's, I think that's the hard verb, right? So I'm gonna go with Shady Clayton Johnson, and he's 6 for 51. And then of course they got Mario Williams at wide receiver, which, as an OU fan, you would love to shut him down. After what I saw, we talked about Houston having success in the passing game. They didn't end up with a ton of points to show for it, but they had success in the passing game. Mario Williams coming in with 10 catches, 252 yards, no touchdowns, but he's averaging 25 yards a catch. The dude could still play. Let's face it. He played at OU. He was still a ball player at USC. I just think he got tired of it. You know what I think about this game? I'm scared to freaking death.
Well, we talked about this after last week's game against Houston, right? What happens when you play an offense that can maybe keep up? Your defense has been stellar so far. I don't think an OU fan would have any complaints over what you've seen from the defense. I mean, again, everybody has a couple busts here and there, right? You let a couple runs go through. You might give up a crossing route. But overall, right, I think you guys have been pretty pleased about what you've seen. But you haven't faced an attack like this, at least one that could put up big yards, and a player like Mario Williams at receiver. So can they keep up enough to really challenge you guys in this game?
Okay. I expressed concern, small c, concern about our secondary last week in the recap show. However, I think after further rumination on the thought, I think it's fair to say in 2 games, Oklahoma has made teams very one-dimensional. They can't run against OU right now. If that stays the same, where these guys don't get this same yards per carry that they've gotten in the last 2 weeks, I'm fine with the numbers in the secondary as long as we can continue to hold them, right? But if they're going to continue to make teams one-dimensional, I'm fine with that. If they're going to put the ball in the hands of Darian Mensah and completely take away the running game, I feel really good about that from a defensive perspective. It's on the offense, Kevin. It's on the offense. And if you look at the injury update, Garen Hatchett, the transfer from Washington, who had started at center, he's going to be out for the year. I guess he didn't technically start at center. He started last game at center for Hickman, who's still out. So we're now on our third string center, Bates. The projected week 3 starters at offensive line are Logan Howland, redshirt freshman, Jacob Sexton, left guard, Bates at center, Fabici Nwewu at right guard, and Tarquin at right tackle. So it's still
concerning.
It's either an excuse or a concern or an obstacle. You can describe whatever words you want to put on it, but in any case, it's not good. For me, the bigger issue is getting Nick Anderson back.
So he is back. Is that confirmed?
No.
Okay.
No, this is why it's an issue. The bigger issue is getting Nick Anderson back. According to Brent Venables, he's a maybe. Maybe it's questionable. I don't know what they term it in college. Let's put it at questionable. He's questionable against Tulane. It looks like he's probable against Tennessee. We can't take Tulane for granted, though. Like this is too good of a football team.
Yeah, you're kind of running out of games to hold him out of.
That's exactly right. And we've had issues at wide receiver. Let's face it. Outside of Deion Burks, I don't like any of our guys. We had a lot of hope with Brennan Thompson. We haven't seen it. He hasn't developed into any kind of receiver after 2 games. And the deep pass isn't there. That's what he does, the deep pass. And it's not there.
Did you take any shots even against Houston?
One to Deion Burks that he cut off early and led to a interception. At least he took credit for that. You don't know.
Okay.
You know, it's one of those routes where when you look at it, it looks underthrown maybe or overthrown. I think it's overthrown by Arnold. Burks has come out and taken responsibility for that. But other than that, no, not a lot of shots. The tight end, Jake Taylor or Jake Roberts. I always mess it up.
Jake Roberts. Yeah.
Jake Roberts. That's right. He looked good.
He did.
I would love to see, if you're not going to have Nick Anderson, I would love to see heavy 2 tight end with Roberts and Bauer Sharp.
With Texas, Sark loves that 12 personnel, man. 2 tight ends all day.
He loves it. Now, here's what you're up against, right? You're up against wondering if that's Seth Luttrell's offense. And I'm putting air quotes, guys, if you're listening. Is that Seth? Well, I don't really care at this point if that's Seth Luttrell's offense. Now, does that mean we can go out and execute it like Texas? No, but I would like to see some elements of it. Because I think right now, if you're Nick Anderson lists, your best 3 pass catchers are Burks, Roberts, and Bauer Sharp. And I think they give you your best chance to have success in the passing game. Because I do not like J.J. Hester. I don't like any of them, really, with where they're at. So,
yeah.
And then running game, I need Taylor Tatum, dude. We talked about this after week 1, that he looked like the most explosive back. Javonte Barnes looks solid, I guess. You'd like to see better numbers, but if we're ranking them, he's a clear number 2. And then Gavin Sawchuk, I don't know if he's hurt. I don't know if he's not the best back for a banged-up offensive line. I don't know what the issue is, but if he's not a clear number 3, I do not know what DeMarco Murray is grading on. I would like to see the curve. We love DeMarco Murray, but come on, dude. And I was high on Gavin Sawchuk. He's been non-existent, and his plays have been wasted plays when they give him the ball.
Yeah, I mean, he had 4 carries for 4 yards
It's terrible. It's
against
4
Houston.
carries too much. 4 carries too much.
It's surprising. Taylor Tatum 1 carry for 6 yards. Javonte Barnes 12 for 41 against Houston. Again, look, Houston has some. They had a pretty good scheme defensively, but
They got
again,
some
you're
big dudes.
Oklahoma.
They
Yeah,
got big dudes.
exactly.
Yeah.
And again, though, it's just a combination right now of the young offensive line or inexperienced offensive line and not having your best guys out there, right? It was already a question mark. So you have a question mark and you add the injuries to it. That's when it becomes a major concern. Combining that with the young quarterback who's still seeing everything for the first time. So the struggles.
Combining that with your receivers.
Yeah. I think your long-term outlook at receiver looks fine. You just got to get your guys out there.
Yeah.
Hester and Thompson, I mean, they're just not ready to be those guys. Maybe they will be at some point, but right now, they're just not. I think your outlook looks fine at receiver. The offensive line continues to be a concern, and it will be probably for the rest of the season when you go up against these elite defensive lines.
ESPN put out updated predictor percentages on wins. So at the beginning of the year, Oklahoma had 2 losses predicted. Texas and Alabama. There's only 2 losses that the ESPN predictor had. They had us winning against Tennessee. It's been updated. We're now at 77% chance to beat Tulane, 33% chance to beat Tennessee. So that is flipped. Not flipped dramatically, but it's flipped 20 percentage points, whatever that means in the algorithm. But whatever numbers they're plugging in there, we've had a 20% drop. Still projected to beat Auburn, but it's a lot smaller now. 15% chance to beat Texas. Here's the only thing I'll say about ESPN predictor. I don't care how bad we are. It's always 50-50. Throw out 22. If we've got 3 quarterbacks right now that I would feel better against than anybody we rolled out in 22. So I still think between Oklahoma's defense and just the nature of that game, Oklahoma has a chance.
Yeah, it doesn't plug in. Yeah, that their algorithm doesn't account for the rivalry aspect or the atmosphere in the Cotton Bowl, the insane momentum shifts that happen in every game. Even the 49-0 had momentum shifts in the first half.
The only thing I will say in that game, which is the whole raison d'etre of this podcast, so it's okay to talk about this for a minute. As we get closer to that game, the experience level and the experience factor between a Quinn Ewers and a Jackson Arnold just is starting to like magnify and magnify and magnify.
It is.
Quinn Ewers has played in 2 Red River games. He's played in a Big 12 championship game. He's played in a college football playoff game. He's played in road games against Alabama and Michigan. And he's hosted Alabama at home. That depth of experience, regardless if Quinn is Heisman contender or elite or not elite or whatever, dude, he's seen a lot of ball.
And you saw it with Dylan Gabriel last year. It's the same thing, having that experience. And you saw it in those key moments in that game.
First of all, we did see it, but he didn't have that experience. What I just laid out.
Yeah, true. Yeah. But just the experience of playing so much football and seeing so many different scenarios and just being – he was the calmest guy on the field in that last drive.
If the algorithm factored that in, then I'm good with it.
Yeah.
Because Quinn Ewers, it's concerning for Oklahoma. Projected to beat Carolina, now projected to lose to Ole Miss, projected to beat Maine, projected to beat Missouri, lose to Ole Miss, beat Maine, lose to Missouri, lose to Bama. At this point, 50-50 against LSU.
So what is that record?
7-5.
Okay.
7-5, which is what everybody said preseason, which is what the win total at Vegas had us at, which is far from the very positive projection I made in our season preview. I think the offensive line, it's got to get better in a hurry, Kevin, or we're in for a very long season where you're almost happy to escape with 7-5.
Yeah.
Because The Auburn game doesn't look nearly as easy as it did in the preseason. I'll tell you what, the South Carolina game doesn't look easy.
That one looks, I still think Auburn, the biggest thing with Auburn is the atmosphere at the stadium, dealing with that. The team, they're never going to be great, in my opinion. South Carolina becomes interesting. I think that game was in Norman, but their defensive line looks unbelievable. I'm going to send you some highlights to look at of this Dylan Stewart kid. He had this one dip move coming around the edge, and it looked like prime Von Miller. I'm talking Denver Broncos Super Bowl Von Miller with this dip around the edge that he beat an offensive tackle with.
Didn't Von Miller beat OU with A&M? I think he did. I think he might have.
Maybe. It was still Big 12 then. It was before they went to the SEC. He got us too.
I think he beat a Landry Jones-led Sooners. I'd have to look that up. But listen, dude, it's the confidence level for OU is low for me right now. The spread is 13.5. I think OU finds a way to win. I think whether it's coaching, whether it's home crowd, whether we get Nick Anderson back, I don't think Seth Luttrell has forgot to coach offense. Joe John Finley has forgotten how to coach offense. I think they can put the pieces together to piece a win against Tulane. I think it'll be ugly. I think it'll be low scoring. I think OU wins, but I think Tulane covers the 13.5.
It's an afternoon game.
2:30. It's going to be hot. 95 degrees projected.
Wow. Well, that won't affect either team, right? Tulane, they're practicing in New Orleans in that extreme humidity and heat down there, so they might be relieved to play in Norman. I don't know, man. This is going to be an interesting game just because we talked about this. Their offense looks capable, right? They threw for over 300. They had a running back rush for 130. Can they be the first offense that can at least keep your defense a little bit off balance? Can they have any success running the football against your defensive line, which looks really good against the run so far? I mean, better than I expected. And against the run, I knew you guys would be able to get after the passer in the passing game. But the run defense looks really good so far. Can they keep up? I don't think they win. I think you guys win, but I also think the Tulane covers.
Tulane covers. All right. No surprises. No disagreements through 4 picks. University of Texas takes on UNI's hometown university. It's so cool to see them continuing to play football. It was just not even a thought when you and I were growing up in San Antonio that somebody could go to UTSA and play football. I think it's really cool.
Football at that.
Well, and they've had success, which they should, right? San Antonio, fertile recruiting ground. As long as you build a program up, which I think they did really well with. They had their first coach. They had their coach that was at Miami.
Larry Coker.
Larry Coker, who's from Oklahoma, by the way. Always reminded me of Elmer Fudd. But he put together a pretty good foundation there. They've continued to grow on it. Last year, this game was a little tricky for Texas when we were picking it.
2 years ago, 2022.
Yeah, I think Texas, pulled away in the end. But in any case, UTSA, University of Texas, breakdown. Also, give us the when and where to watch this. I'm not sure I even know what time this game is. Give us some information.
All right. Well, it'll be an evening game. They have 6:30, and it'll be on ESPN. So UTSA, they're struggling a bit this year. They had Frank Harris, the quarterback, 6-year player, tons of experience, 2 conference championships. He's gone now, and they're struggling to replace him. They've got 2 guys that they've been playing. Owen McCown, son of Luke McCown, former NFL player. He started for them, really struggled. They played against Texas State. It's a bit of a rivalry game that they've got going there. San Antonio against San Marcos. And they got beat down 49-10 against Texas State. Yeah. And it's so interesting because Texas State's head coach is G.J. Kinney. You remember him? He played at started off at Texas, actually.
Yeah, I remember.
For the Tulsa. And Jeff Traylor was actually his high school coach at Gilmer.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. Yeah, when DJ Kennedy came out of Gilmer High School, and yeah, Coach Traylor was the head coach there at the time. So coaching against a guy who coached you in high school, and you beat him 49-10, had to be very interesting for him. But yeah, they're really struggling, man, offensively. McCown went 14-27 for one. Excuse me, he went 10 of 23, 105 yards. They yanked him, put in Eddie Lee Barberger, who went 14-27 for 147, one touchdown, one interception. So the offense is really struggling. Defense hasn't been much better either. So I'm looking through the roster, and usually they have a lot of transfers, big name guys that have come from other schools that have made an impact. Look at the roster. They have some big name guys on their roster, but a lot of those guys, for whatever reason, aren't starting. Right. So I don't know if those guys are.
So it sounds like
the field stuff.
It sounds like the classic case of the cupboards were raided, because didn't you get a line? Was it a edge
Yeah,
from UTSA?
Yeah, Trey Moore, who had 14 sacks for them last year.
Yeah.
14. He was a American Conference Player of the Year. Now he's playing for us and playing quite well. He doesn't have any sacks yet, but he's been really good against the run and getting pressure on the quarterback. He had several pressures against Michigan last week. So the roster got raided a little bit, and they lost their guys, and they're just struggling to replace them. So this game, honestly, is really about Texas. I think we're a serious football team. We showed that. But serious football teams handle their business against teams like this. They don't let them hang around. They don't come out sluggish. Last year, when Texas won at Tuscaloosa, they had Wyoming the next week, and they looked incredibly sluggish to start that game. I mean, that was a game until midway through the third quarter. Xavier Worthy popped a long touchdown run, and it kind of put the game out of reach. So I'm hoping that on Saturday we just come out and handle our business, get after these dudes, and just put it away early, and we can show our depth, let some of our young and inexperienced players get out there.
Well, I think it's fair that Texas had a hangover after beating Alabama and Tuscaloosa last year. That's a fair thing. That's a fair thing to have occurred. I mean, you beat Alabama. I mean, regardless of. I mean, they made the college football playoff last year. This is Alabama, and you beat them in Tuscaloosa when nobody thought you would. Probably should have beat them 2 years in a row. And so you're gonna come up. It's gonna be a letdown. It's just the nature of 20-year-old dudes who get up for such a big game. Right? Yeah. Human nature. However, the counter to that, and to your point, it wasn't the same at Michigan. Like you were expected to win. B, you were in control the entire game. C, you really shouldn't be celebrating after a win like Michigan. I mean, you should feel good. Everybody should feel proud, and it's the best win of the year. But this is not the Alabama win. It's not the monkey off your back. It's not the we've arrived now because we beat Michigan. It's more like we took care of business. What's next? And that's, I'm guessing, what you want to see.
That's exactly what I want to see. And, the thing is, we become the media darling this week. Everybody's talking about how good we are. We might be the best team in the country. This guy.
I have you at number one. Yeah.
And it's great. But hopefully the players don't read too much into it and go out and handle their business. Like I said, I do believe that we're very serious this year. So I believe that we will go out and handle our business against UTSA early. I would love to see us do that. That way, get Quinn out of there, get Jaden Blue out of there. We've got young, talented guys. Like I told you,
you'd love to see Arch get the whole second half.
Correct. To play when the game is still a game, where he can run the entire offense. We're not trying to just run the ball up the middle in hopes to run the clock out. I want to see him run our offense. I want to see our young receivers get out there and make some plays. I want to see our young defensive players get out there and make some plays.
Okay, so I couldn't find the ESPN predictor is a weird deal because it's like I only am able to get that from like Sooners Insider or something. Like I'm not sure how to find that on the internet. And yes, I'm admitting that I'm an old and don't love working the internet. So I couldn't find the predictor for Texas. My guess is it's gone way up since the Michigan win. I'm not sure what the Georgia game is. My guess is that's the only close one on your schedule left. However, Interestingly enough, I was able to find the playoff predictor, and pretty much each of the contributors to the playoff predictor and the predictor itself have Georgia winning the SEC, which puts you hosting a first-round game.
Yeah.
I think that is a ginormous advantage for anybody to be able to get a round one bye. Like that is a coveted spot in this new playoff system. And having to play a game just is such a deficit, whether it be the chance of losing, clearly, you're going to play another top 12 team, the chance of injury, the chance of wear and tear, the extra week that the other team gets to prepare in terms of scouting and prep work. Do you think Texas is in a position to overtake Georgia, or do you think Georgia is still the big dog in the SEC because of what they've accomplished?
Well, I think Georgia is definitely still the big dog in the SEC because of what they've accomplished. But I think Texas can get there. I think they can hang with Georgia, right? I mean, Georgia's the class of college football because of what they've done the last few years, but I don't think they're invincible. No one is. I look at there's not one team that I've seen this year and say, oh, that team there's nobody that can beat that team.
No, I think NIL and transfer portal have. I don't think they've created parity 30 teams down. Okay, so I don't think we're the NFL with 30 teams have parity to be able to make a run. But I think it's taken those top 4 teams at the beginning of every year that we've always seen and turned it into 12 teams. I really believe that, because you look at quarterbacks that would normally sit behind at Ohio State and wait to play. They're not waiting anymore. Running backs, they're not waiting anymore. Wide receivers, they're not waiting. Defensive linemen even are moving around. And it's creating more competitive balance through the top 12 that can pay for the NIL and that can promise success in the playoff. So I think it's really interesting. If I am prognosticating into the future, Texas has to play Georgia following OU Texas, right?
That's right.
No bye week. No bye week.
No, it is the following Saturday.
I could envision a scenario where, regardless of what happens to OU Texas, you have to get up for that game. I mean, I can't imagine, even if OU was to lose to Tennessee and even South Carolina, but if they were to lose to Tennessee, where Texas is overlooking an OU team going into Red River.
Yeah, correct.
I mean, if it is.
Especially after what happened last year.
Yeah, if they are.
If we do that, we deserve to lose the football game.
Yeah, if they are, I hope they are, but I don't think they are. So I think you've got to get up for that game, and whatever occurs, it's going to be a hard-hitting game, especially from our defense. I could see a scenario where you lose to Georgia the following week.
So do I.
However, I think based on the back half of your schedule that you could get right and potentially play Georgia again, and I don't see why you're not getting that first round bye. I really don't, at least right now when I look at it. I don't think you could go unscathed the rest of the year. I'm not predicting 12-0.
Yeah, it's really hard to do, man. It's
really hard to do. I mean, if Quinn gets a concussion, God forbid, I mean, for you, that would be great if it was like right before the OU Texas game. But if Quinn was to get a concussion or something, I mean, Arch is good. It's good. He's not going to just step in and take over that experience that we've seen and all of that. There's just a lot of factors there. But the way the composition of your team, specifically at offensive line, I mean, God, dude, I think even if you're not the best team in the country, do you have the best offensive line in the country?
It's up there. I haven't seen everybody play, but I was really impressed with what I saw because that's the strength of the Michigan team. That's what I was concerned about. They've got 3 guys that are really good. They probably got 4 guys that'll get drafted overall, but they've got 3, first, second round guys.
We were talking about
they were non-factors.
We were talking about this at the soccer field, which is where most of my sports. That's the water cooler for me, okay? Because I work up from home a lot. So the soccer field is the water cooler, and They were asking if we should panic about Jackson Arnold, right? Should we panic? Do we need to replace him? And again, I brought up some in the heat of the moment. I made arguments for replacing him, arguments against. At this point, whatever. But as I've had time to think about it, it's more like, take a look at Texas. Quinn's first year, 5-7.
No, he was. They're 8-4.
Was the 5-7 year with Casey Thompson?
There was in Hudson Card, combination of those two.
But does that? Let me ask you this: does that Texas team go 8-4 with OU's record this year?
With OU schedule?
I mean, OU schedule with OU schedule this year.
No.
I don't think so either. And so I think that if Brent can follow the Texas blueprint and we can go ahead and stick with it, I think the biggest difference is, however, is that Texas had true freshmen and redshirt freshmen starting on the offensive line 3 years ago. And we were concerned about that offensive line 3 years ago. And we talked about Kelvin Banks being a true freshman starting off on the offensive line and all of the things. But now we're seeing the benefit of that investment, right, in a Texas team. And the only concern I have for Oklahoma is we're still piecing together an offensive line, right? Still transfer portal guys. It's not internal growth on the offensive line. And so I'm concerned about that. On the defensive line, however, we're throwing out true freshmen out there. Jaden Jackson's out there. Other players are making impacts as underclassmen on the defensive side of the ball. So even though we're going to lose a Bowman and a Stutzman, you still feel like, well, man, we still have some dudes, so you feel good about it.
Kip Lewis coming back.
You got Kip Lewis coming back. You've got Spears Jennings, who I think has another year. All of these things are looking okay.
Peyton Bowman to replace Billy Bowman, too.
You've got Jacoby Johnson at corner. Gentry Williams is still only a redshirt sophomore. Des Malone's a young guy. So, again, offensive line, though, I look at what Texas did. They had their struggles, but they had their struggles with freshman offensive linemen. And now you're seeing the difference. And that's what has me concerned about Oklahoma's long-term progression compared to what the blueprint was for Sark at Texas.
Yeah, that's the one player. That's the one position we haven't relied on portal guys either. These are the same guys that have developed. And what Texas has had is the continuity of the coaching staff. They're the only team in the country. They've had the same head coach and coordinators for 4 years. This is year 4. Everything's the same.
Is that a function of Texas being able to pay them? Are they making like obscene amounts of money? Or
yeah, I think most of them are making 7 figures.
I mean, we lose Jeff Lebby and we lose Ted Roof, and nobody expected to have a drop off. And with Zach Alley, I don't know that we've had a drop off. In fact, I think his energy infusion has been incredibly positive for that team. Offensively, though, you wonder, could Jeff Lebby have done a better job? I don't know that he was Lincoln Riley. He put up really, really good numbers, but he made questionable calls. You didn't love some of that stuff.
It was questionable calls and questionable moments. But, man, he had some really good schemes, though, man.
Yes, but is he doing this with the injuries? Like, are the injuries is the injuries the determining factor versus losing Jeff Lebby? I really hope so. I hope that Seth Luttrell, because when we named him as the play caller, in particular him, I know Joe John's a co-coordinator, but when you named something, I felt pretty good about it. North Texas had some good offense 3 or 4 years there, and that was with clearly lesser talent. I think if he would have jumped after year 3, he probably finds himself in a really good spot. He stayed with North Texas. We know how that ended up. I don't know. Texas, I hate. This is the hard part. Everybody asks me about this podcast, Kevin. Everybody. And they're like, does it suck when Texas is so good? And the answer is yes. This is a much more fun podcast when I can talk trash on Texas. But right now, outside of Sark's divorce, I'm having a hard time of finding topics to pick on about Texas.
Yeah, even that. I mean, he might not
It's
be
tragic.
upset about that. You know,
It's
he might not
tragic.
even. Who knows how he feels about that?
Oh, what's her name?
You know, L'Oreal.
I'd be upset about it.
Yeah.
She does look high maintenance. She does look high maintenance. She does look like a woman that you have to pay a specific amount of, like a pretty healthy amount of attention to. Okay? And I have a little bit of that in my own life, as most people know. However, for the same reasons, i.e., pretty smoking hot, do you really want to lose her?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Probably not. Who knows? Who knows?
You're
But
saying
if that's the only thing you can say, I mean, I'm feeling pretty good. Pretty. But there's so much football left to be played. That's why you haven't heard me bragging too much, right? Just because there's so many things that can happen. There's so many injuries that can occur. I'm not out here punching a
no
ticket
joke. No joke on
for
the
natty.
injuries. Plenty of freaking injuries. Texas, 35-point favorite. Did they cover?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we have no drama in terms of the head-to-head. Regardless of what we finish, I will be up one game on you in the head-to-head because we literally went down the line. But let's see how we do. Kevin, we just a little quick NFL talk here with the last 5-10 minutes we've got in our show. I'm not doing jumping jacks if I'm a New York Jets fan right now. And
No, that was not impressive. No.
He looked a little unshaky on his feet, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, was he 39 years old?
40? 40.
Yeah, I mean, coming off that's a major injury, man. You know, sometimes we treat it like it's just a minor 2-week. I mean, it's at one point, a career-ending injury for an older quarterback.
I mean, nobody would say that Brock Purdy is or will be a better quarterback than Aaron Rodgers.
Correct.
Nobody will say that. But he was the better quarterback on Monday night.
He was.
And this was without McCaffrey. I texted you. You did not text back, so you must not think this was a big deal. But the number change for Deebo Samuels has messed me up watching that game. I didn't like it at all.
Yeah. When the game first started, I'm like, who was number one? Who's that? Oh, it's Deebo.
Does that signify a bigger commitment to the running back position by going number one? Is there something underlying there?
Running backs don't wear number one. You know what I mean? So in the NFL, running back was always 20 through 40s.
Yeah, but they changed that though.
Yeah, I mean, you can wear whatever number you want.
But you're saying that doesn't matter. You're saying he is number one.
Yeah, because he just Manning the jersey number one.
The Manning brothers were sure hard on Ayuk for dropping that touchdown.
Well, it should be. I mean, their quarterback especially.
Yeah.
He could have caught it.
If you're going to get paid, catch it.
Catch it, yeah. Yeah.
He's good Other notes, Baker Mayfield looked pretty good. Like, he looks
he had the best quarterback performance of the entire weekend.
He looks very comfortable in the system. Is this the first time he's ever had a coordinator 2 years in a row?
Possibly,
yeah. Right?
Really very comfortable. And he's smart.
We know how good Mike Evans is. He looks really, really comfortable. That division still, the Saints had a good game, but they weren't playing were they playing the Panthers?
Yeah, they're playing. I mean, and
everybody might have a good game.
How do you look so bad? Oh my goodness, that was Bryce Young. Sheesh, 13 of 30.
Is Bryce Young struggling because he's with the Panthers, or is he struggling because he was a really, really, really good college quarterback that's not going to translate to the NFL? Too early to say, or
I think it's too early to say, but it's very concerning what I've seen from him and that entire team. It just looks like they're ready for the season to be over already.
Other quarterbacks that struggled, especially which is really, really nice to say compared to Baker. The Cowboys made Deshaun Watson look like a third-string quarterback. And that might be what he is.
He looked really bad. He's not seeing the field at all. He's jittery in the pocket, even when the protection was good. Inaccurate. It's like, what happened to you, man?
Did you notice, too, that a lot of his throws didn't look good?
Yeah, his throwing motion was weird.
Throwing motion. The ball came out kind of wobbly. you talk about a Justin Fields, and I don't even know if he played. Did he even play for Pittsburgh?
He started, yeah, because Russell Wilson was injured.
That's right. But okay, even when Justin Fields overthrows receivers, the ball looks pretty, right?
Yeah, he throws a great ball.
Oh man, it's just like you're like, oh man, that's good. Oh no, it's an overthrow. That was not Deshaun Watson. I mean, he was throwing balls out of bounds like that were just so bad. Listen, worst contract ever in the NFL, possibly.
Oh yeah, we're getting to that point to where it's talking about maybe even history of sports.
It's really bad, and he's
this is
just
so unconventional. We've never seen a fully guaranteed contract in the NFL before. That high.
He just is coming off as a bigger and bigger douche every single year. I mean, the Browns made the playoffs last year with Joe Flacco at quarterback, which tells you that their roster composition is not terrible despite the really crappy contract. But it's only going to get harder. Roster. It's only going to get harder to maintain that, and they're the Browns. They're the Browns for a reason.
They've got a good defense, and they have good offensive talent. The offensive line's solid, and they've got good players at the skill positions.
How did Bijan look for the Falcons?
Pittsburgh completely shut him down. The Falcons did not look good at all. Kirk Cousins looked like an older quarterback, also coming off an Achilles injury.
Another big contract.
Yes. But I'm curious, how long are they going to be able to keep Michael Penix Jr. on the bench there? That's what I'm curious about, because, again, you brought Kirk Cousins in to be the starter, but you also drafted Penix. You drafted him in the top 10, and you did it for a reason. So, I think they'll probably give him a couple more weeks to see, because they feel like they can make the playoffs with their roster. And Pittsburgh had no respect for the passing game at all. They loaded up the box to stop Bijan, and they did that. They shut him down. He had no running room whatsoever. Looked like his freshman year at Texas when he's having to juke guys in the backfield.
First of all, I agree with you. You were on the Penix train early, and then I jumped on it with you last year. I like what that guy's about. I think his arm talent already might be top 10 in the league. The problem is, the argument against is the performance of the other three rookie quarterbacks. Caleb Williams, no good. Bo Nix, not much better. And then who was the other guy?
Daniels.
Mm-mm. So if you're Atlanta and you're saying, I think Penix is really good, but you're looking at the performance of rookie quarterbacks in the first week, you might be pumping those brakes a little bit and throwing him out there. Does that make, you know what I mean?
No, it makes perfect sense. The thing that really concerned me with these guys, especially with Daniels, is how quickly they bail on the pocket. I mean, if the first read isn't there, they're looking to escape.
And you can't do that
once they got out of the pocket. No, you can't. And really, in college, a lot of times, I mean, these guys he was a superstar. Caleb made it work most of the time. But as you saw last year against their better competition defensively, Notre Dame, it didn't work.
Well, and you know what's interesting about Lamar Jackson is every year Lamar has made it a point of staying in the pocket longer.
Yes.
And in addition to it helping his passing game, I think it also helps his scrambling, because the routes are more developed. They're further downfield. Linebackers are getting out of position, and it creates those running lanes that he can take advantage of, because the play has truly broken down. It's not so congested. Same thing with Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray does a better job, I think, of staying in the pocket, although that was a bad loss for them. Although it was against Buffalo at Buffalo. Man, you're up 17-3 in the NFL. You got to win that game. All that to be said. But does that make sense, though? So you can't do one read and break down and run in the NFL. You just can't do it. The guys are too fast.
It's not a sustainable deal. And despite Daniels having 2 rushing touchdowns, that's not, he's got to stay in there. You've got guys to throw to, and the offensive line can protect you for longer than you think they can. So they'll learn. And Daniels took way too many hits. And Caleb Williams, at least he wasn't taking on guys getting hit that much. Right? I was concerned with the hits that Lamar took. But yeah, Caleb Williams
he looked inaccurate.
That's what really concerned me, because that's not
normal for him. That's not normal for him.
First game jitters, maybe. NFL debut.
Well, he says he doesn't
tries
get
to do
nervous.
too much.
He says he doesn't get nervous. Well,
Sometimes he tries to
absolutely.
do too much. He can be because of his enormous talent, but it doesn't work in the NFL. Just play within the system, and your talent will take over eventually.
I think the NFL is going to be fun as always. I don't think you can take anything away from the Cowboys win. I think the Cowboys are just what they are. They're gonna have games where they look brilliant and tease you, and then they're gonna have games where they look like the Browns.
Right.
So if you're a Cowboys fan, do not get your hopes up.
Good for Dak, by the way, for getting paid, which we all knew was going to happen. I'm not sure why they delayed this.
How often had they franchised him? Had he been working on a franchise tag for like the last 2 years?
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Well, he wasn't on his rookie contract. Was he on his second contract?
They paid him. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is number 3 for him.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's what it is. He's
a very good quarterback.
Yes. Is he great? Is he elite? No. But he's good. He's not going to do any better. And if you don't have anything better, you got to pay the guy you got. And if you're going to pay the guy you got, the money goes up with every quarterback that signs.
Those contracts make so much more sense than Deshaun Watson and Kirk Cousins.
Yes.
Like, it just, how much of his is his fully guaranteed?
No, but it's like 230 of it. It's crazy, man. It's insane.
Well, that's the NFL. That's where we're at.
Yeah, that's what sports are at. Yeah.
Kevin, real quick, you had mentioned week 3 in our prep. You pretty fired up about week 3 college football. I know we're looking ahead. The slate is not great. OU fan has a ton of consternation. Texas fan feels like it's a bye week. What are we looking forward to it in week 3? Just real quick preview, and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah, week 4, man. It should be a lot of fun. Give me 1 second here.
Oh, week 4. That's right. This is week 3.
Yeah,
it's already going by.
LSU hosting it is. I know. That's why part of me is like, man, I can't wait till I'm just like, just enjoy this week, man. Before you know it, the season will be over. So we got LSU is hosting UCLA. Clemson is hosting NC State. But then the bigger games, we've got USC traveling to Michigan. Old Rose Bowl matchup. And then we've got Utah. Yeah, it is. And we've got Utah going to Stillwater to play against Oklahoma State. The teams I had picked 1 and 2 in the Big 12. And then, of course, Oklahoma hosting Tennessee. Josh Heupel making his return to Norman. So many storylines there. And just the football game should be great. So you guys get to host what's a spectacle. A time been announced, 6:30 p.m.
Yep.
Local time. So you get a primetime game. It'll be the most watched game of the weekend for sure. So yeah, you have a chance to really show yourselves well.
I want we need to go ahead and beat Tulane. We need to enter that game undefeated. And we need to figure something out. I hope that we've taken this week. I mean, look, those coaches are working hard. The players are working hard. They're putting time in. We gotta, as fans, we've got to understand that and respect that. It's easy to get frustrated, but there's time to fix this. There's time to fix this against Tulane. They're not world beaters. Let's go put a 3 or 4 drive. We put 2 or 3 drives together. We beat Tulane.
I agree.
Our defense is too good. Just put 2 or 3 or 4 drives together, which didn't happen against Houston. So, I mean, I guess I'm asking a lot. I don't think I am, but let's just go put some drives together.
Texas last week, we said, just go out there and you get up early, and it'll be difficult for them to come back. Defense gets to fly around, make them one-dimensional, which no team wants to be one-dimensional unless you're like, Texas Tech in the 2000s under Mike Leach, when they're always just trying to throw the football. But yeah, plenty of time left. And again, as bad as that was for you guys on Saturday, at least you won, right? You could beat Notre Dame.
You could beat Notre Dame. Ask Florida State how they're feeling at 0-2. 0-2 already. Texas A&M lost to Notre Dame. Oh, there's lots of losses out there. I'm glad we're not one of them. Texas will roll. Kevin, have a great rest of your week. Everybody enjoy the episode. Share it with your friends. We appreciate y'all listening. Boomer.
Hook 'em.